Professional operation over here. All right, I think I'm actually set up. Appears to be happening. Cool. All right, so we're going to pick up where we left off yesterday. This is the business we're working on, a page collection view. Run that on a simulator. That. The continuation of some sorts of note-taking app I released a number of years ago that I had built before collection views existed. Now I'm just kind of toying with the idea of rebuilding it using kind of modern technology and some modern APIs. So here we see a list of a number of different pages, PDF pages, and you can tap into those and you get a nice flow layout looking grid view of all your different pages. Look into each of those pages and roll through them. You can pinch back out to your grid view, and then you can pinch back out to your list view as well. If I don't screw up my simulator here. So yesterday we were looking at a couple of these settings over here. So right now all of the pages are fit to width on the screen, and I can scale them down. Now each of these pages is their physical size. So if this iPad were physically in my hands instead of on my screen, then this sheet of paper would show up on the screen its exact dimensions of whatever that PDF sheet of paper was. So if it's a US letter sized piece of paper, then it would show up as an 8.5 by 11. If it was an A4, it would show up. If it was a US letter, a 3x5 note card, right? It would all show up in the correct size. You can rotate those pages around. I support arbitrary rotation, which is pretty exciting to get working. And I also can support directions. So let me get that back to nice and square. So right now I'm scrolling vertically, and yesterday we were working on scrolling horizontally. So then you can scale all of those up, right? So you can support either one. And there were a few things that I wanted to go over today. I actually started on a few of them. So let me show you one thing I fixed earlier today. So here's where we left off. I've done a little bit more. I want to show you this guy, the rotating the iPad. And actually, let me show you this one because I think we left off here. All right, so this guy, fixed grid view, unrotating, so we want right before that. I'll show you the bug we had to run into. So notice this page right here in the top left corner is rotated. So it's rotated by 90 degrees. In this view, it's rotated by 90 degrees. And if I pinch out, it stays rotated. If I come in on the second collection and I pinch out real slowly, you can see that top row come into view as it slides in. And that very first page is actually stretching out. So it's it starts at the wrong ratio, and then you can see it stretch out to its full width there. So that's what I fixed, and let me show you how I did that earlier today. That was on that commit. So on this commit, there's a really easy fix. So I removed a semicolon. And what I had been doing is setting the frame of the attributes. And these attributes right here actually have a transform applied as well. And so that transform the order of operations matters. So if I set a frame and then apply transform, I actually get a different result on that view than if I apply the transform and then set the frame. And so what I did is instead of setting the frame, I just set the center to move that view down. And then after setting the center instead of the frame, it's in this guy. So this was the change right here, set center, and that's because there's a transform applied on those attributes. Now when we do that and we pinch back, you'll see that page in the very top left-hand corner as it slides into view. Its aspect ratio does not change as it comes in. So it's all the correct aspect ratio. So that was one thing that I fixed. Another thing that was strange that might pop up again today, but I think is fixed. I got a video of it because I wanted to show it. So here, this is the simulator, and I'm just in that vertical page mode. So I've zoomed in here. I'm in kind of this mode right here where I can scroll up and down. And if I rotate the iPad, then notice here it should be a page here and one page here, and instead I get a third page. So the layout is doing some very strange things where it's I think what was happening is it was keeping the layout attributes of portrait view, so this thinner width, and then on rotation it was actually using those thinner width attributes to lay out. So it was an odd thing. So what I believe did the trick, oops, was changing where I invalidate the layout. So now when I rotate the iPad, the collection view changes, the collection view size changes, and inside of that transition coordinator, right before that animation runs, I invalidate the layout, and then during the animation, it can relay out the collection view. And then this business right here is so that way, see if I can show it on, let me restart. So if I go into page view at looking at 1.5 and I rotate the iPad, I'm still looking at 1.5, right? Which is what I want. But before that fix, the target offset would actually be maintained. The point offset would be maintained, which means the index path offset would not be maintained. Now I'm at 1.5, I rotate, and I've got that crazy layout problem you saw before. And so now by doing this, I can by invalidating the layout and transition to size, it solves that layout problem that was showing up. And then the last issue that I want to work on today, here I'm on this commit. This was a strange one to me. I'm still not entirely sure what's going on. So when you're in page view, you can also pinch to zoom in. And so notice in vertical mode, when I'm scrolling vertically and I'm pinching, that's a pretty smooth pinch animation. If I switch to horizontal mode and I pinch in, that's pretty smooth going in, but it's wobbly going out. Smooth, wobbly, it kind of jumps up and down. And the faster I pinch, you can really see how it jumps around. And so what I'd like to do is work on fixing that. So that way it's smooth if I pinch from here, which it is, and if I pinch from here, it should still be smooth here as well. Right? Makes sense? That's today's goal. And I started along, oops, that's the wrong button. I started along that train here. And let me show you what I think was going on. So page collection. Yeah, pinch from page. So right here, this is my pinch gesture. I begin my pinch gesture. I just set up some variables. I'm changing my pinch gesture. This half of the else, if else, is when I'm pinching down back into grid view. This is when I'm pinching out into zoom in the page, right? And what I'm doing is I'm invalidating my layout, and then I'm recalculating the offset, the content offset of the collection view for this new scale that I'm pinching into. I'm setting the content offset. And what I believe is happening is this offset is getting set before the new attributes of all the cells are being set. And so this is set actually in the old layout. And then when the collection view does the new layout, it's also setting the offset. So the offset ends up kind of jumping around from this, which is the correct position, to an eventual wrong position when the collection view actually lays out. And that makes sense. It at least makes sense in my mind that that's the reason that it was happening that way. So what I've done instead is, instead of keeping the exact same layout object and invalidating the layout, I'm actually creating a new layout object. Pinch that guy down into the bar. Laser 696969. Hello, sir. How you doing? Glad to have you in the stream. Glad to have you in the stream. What I'm actually doing is creating a new layout object and forcing the relayout here. And what's important is that when I invalidate the layout, I have code in the layout class that chooses a target offset. So whenever the layout causes an offset change, it lets me adjust that offset. But this does not happen if you only invalidate the layout. This only happens, as far as I can tell, when you set a new layout. What I'm doing is I'm setting a new identical layout that has the correct target index path that it should be zooming in and out of. And then this lets me adjust the offset in this method, which means that the layout of all the collection view cells and the offset change is all happening in the exact same place at the same time. Whereas before, I was setting the offset, and then later it was laying out the collection view cells, which would then cause an offset change. So it would get two offset changes. Now it's just getting one offset change and one layout, what I want. This also means that I have to redo some math. So you can remember here, I had a bunch of sort of ugly math that calculated our scale and what our current scale was and what the new scale would be and what the offset should be, and it figured everything out. So I need to do all this again, but I need to do it in a cleaner and clearer way. That's the goal. What I think I'm going to do is so here I have my iPad screen. I have this is a page, right? And it's larger than the iPad screen because I'm all zoomed in. Here's the next page, et cetera, right? So my pinch gesture happens here. What I care about when I pinch in or out, calculating the correct offset. Oh, come on now. That's my pinch gesture. I want the correct offset for here, up in the corner, right? I don't know if that's visible. Yeah. Make it yellow, right? So that corner is what I need to calculate. And what I was doing was calculating the offset of my page and the distance to my gesture, and then the distance from the gesture. So I was calculating this distance and then calculating this distance right there. And instead, what I think I'm going to do, I might end up doing that. But what I think will actually be cleaner, is to calculate the percentage scrolled through the entire content size, right? And of this gesture point. And so this point is going to be, we'll call that 15%, even though it's not. And that distance all the way back to the origin would be, say, 57%. And so then I know that no matter what the scale of all of my documents is going to be, my gesture should always be at the 57% and 15% location. And then I know that if my gesture moves to over here, that this point is going to be at the 57%, 15% of my content. If it's over here, then this blue point is going to now be my 57%, 15%. So it anchors me that no matter where my gesture moves on the screen, and no matter what the scale is of my content, I know that it's always going to be this ratio and this ratio away from the origin. And then I can calculate my gesture point in content size coordinates and then offset it by the distance from the gesture to the origin of the screen to get my actual content offset. I think that's going to work. I think that's going to be easier. Well, let's just get in there and see what happens. Let's see what we can figure out. Right? Okay, so we have a target content offset. Man, you know, I don't know if I've done all that explaining. I already use a target content offset for rotation and for a number of other things to make sure that what that does is that aligns this top corner of the page to this top corner of the screen. So I want to leverage that and kind of keep using the system that I was doing. Maybe so, and maybe instead of 57% from the entire content size, so from the origin, maybe instead, my paper back. Yep. Maybe instead we just calculate the percent difference. And so I was I think in the previous one doing a physical pixel difference, or I was doing some other strange thing. But now I can just be 57% of the of the paper. And so then I'm anchored onto that location on this page. And then no matter where this page ends up, I can calculate my content offset from that. I think that would be a good idea. Let's do that. Let's see how that turns out. So if we're going to do that, have a zoom offset. Yeah, okay, good. Well, I'm glad I thought about that because apparently I thought about that earlier today because I started to do that here. So this gets the cell that I'm pinching inside of, right? Yeah, so I get my pinch gestures location, I get the index path for that location, here's my index path, here's my cell for that index path. So this guy is beneath my pinch gesture. I get my location in that cell, and then this should give me the percent offset inside of that cell. So let's just test this out for a minute and see what that looks like. So we can do that. So in this page, if I begin pinching up here in the top left, and in the log, I should see, 2% and 5% or something like that, right? That's not what I expected. So now what happens if I do it from the opposite corner down here? I'm not getting the answer at all that I want. It's the wrong. 10% X. Yeah. Why is it jumping like that? I think it's looking at the wrong index path, maybe? Maybe I'm grabbing, maybe this guy is wrong. I'm looking at 1.9. See 1.9. I'm at 7%, 7%. So that is what I expect, which is great. Down here to this corner should be closer to like 90%. Yep, 90 and 87. Right? Low on the X, high on the Y. Yeah, so it's doing the right thing. Doing the right thing. What does it do though for a here on this rotated guy? How does that transform affect it? This is, yeah, so 1.5, I'm low on the X, high on the Y. Here, yeah, because if this is my 0, 0 on this page, then this is the X going down and the Y going across. So this would be low on the X, high on the Y. Interesting. I think that's okay because what I can do is I can look at this offset from within the bounds to get a point within this cell, right? So the point that I would come back, that I would get would be low on the X, high on the Y. So I'd get a point here, and then I could convert point to view of the collection view, which would handle the transform problem for me. So I shouldn't have to deal with the transform. So I think that's okay. I think that's okay. So the fact that I have this zoom offset and I have an index path, that does the right thing. And so now what I need to do is here, I need a target index path, and I also need a, this is a what, page layout?